can go down there and just drive and drive and drive. But one day, I wanted to just drive as far as I could, but I had a sore throat. So I was in a band called the Rugburns, and I went into a coffee house called Java Joe's, and it was in Poway, California. And I said, I have a really sore throat. And this beautiful blonde girl said to me, I'll make you a tea. And she made me chamomile tea with honey and lemon and special other herbs. I don't even know what she put in it. And then I felt good. And then she said, I sing too. And I make stained glass art. Do you want to come out to my Volkswagen van and make stained glass art outside? And I said, yeah. And she was beautiful, so gorgeous. So we got into her van and we made stained glass art. And I said, I don't even know your name. And she goes, it's Jewel. And I go, my name's Steve. And nice to meet you, Jewel. And then, you know, one thing leads to another. You fall in love. You start surfing together, you go camping. So then we go, let's go back down to Mexico. We went down to Mexico and we ended up on a drug bust at an old motel. And there were cops, federales, and they said to us, would you guys like to go whale watching? And we went whale watching with these cops. And they said, this could be dangerous, there could be a shootout. Somebody might need a gun. Would you like an AK-47? And then I was listening to a lot of Snoop Dogg at the time, and I said, hell yeah, Jay, give me a motherfucking AK. So he gave me an AK, and then Jewel said, no, I believe in angels. And then the boat went across the water, and then she saw how cool I looked with a gun, and she said, excuse me, could I have an AK? So he gave her an AK, and then it had a strap around it, like a guitar strap, but she was wearing a yellow bikini, and she had the strap between her breasts, and the sun was out, and the sweat was coming down, and then the boat was going, and her hair blew back so beautifully, and everything went in slow motion, and she looked like she was Uma Thurman in a Quentin Tarantino film. It was one of those amazing things. And I said to her, man, you look gorgeous right now. And then the cops jumped out, and they caught the slowest drug smuggler. So if you're going to smuggle drugs, you should get a Stairmaster, because this guy was not in good shape, and he needed to work out. And they caught him, and they go to hit him with their billy clubs, and he told them where all the weed was buried, and there was 56 tons of weed. So they had me carry it, we put it on the boat, and then we had the prisoners on the boat, and the prisoners were looking at me as if I was ripping off their weed. And I said, I have nothing to do with this, I want to get out of here. And Jewel grabbed me by the arm, and she said, we got to get out of here. We got back to the shore, and then the cop said, Esteban, ven aquí, which means Steve, come here. And I said, what? He said, this is the largest drug bust we've had in years. And I said, what are you going to do? And he said, we're going to have a party. And so he took all the weed, and he held it in front of me, and he said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to get out of here. And he said, let's take a picture. And he opened up a switchblade, and he held it up, and it was glistening in the sunlight. And I said, okay. So we took a picture, and then he said, take some of the weed. And I said, no way, man, I'll get arrested. I'll be like the guy in the movie Midnight Express. I'll be trying to talk to my girl behind a wall on a telephone like that. And then he said, I said, take some essay. And he looked at me, and that's when I knew I was dealing with some trouble. And it was almost like I was in a different Coen Brothers film, like Blood Simple, where everything starts to get confusing. You don't know that really nice to you. So he says to me, take some of the weed. So I try to take some of the weed. I want less than an ounce, so I don't get arrested. He said, take a whole kilo. So I take the whole kilo of weed. And I'm walking down the beach, and then I give it to a woman who was 80 years old. And she was making spaghetti sauce. And she looked at me and she said, one day this shit will be legal in Colorado. You could buy it all the time. And she was stirring the pot. I said, how do you know? And she said, because I'm a time traveler. I said, and she stirred it all around. And then I went to sleep, and Jewel was in bed. And then I said, it's kind of crazy. And she said, what's going on? I said, they're making spaghetti sauce. And she said, well, there's a whole group of campers coming in from Salt Lake City, Utah. They're a Mormon youth group for a spaghetti feast. And she said, but don't tell them, because you don't want to get involved in this. You've already gotten us enough trouble. So I came out of the room at midnight, and then all the Mormon youth group were playing Frisbee. And they're just like singing Kumbaya, but it was like Kumbaya backwards. Like, roll, roll, roll. And so I went back to bed, and when I woke up, I came back out, and there was a guy in a suit laying next to a goat, and the tide was coming in. It was nothing kinky. It wasn't kinky, but he was laying next to a goat, but he was like a Mormon missionary, and he had a thin black tie and a white shirt, and his hair was perfect, like the Warren Zevon song, Werewolves of London. He just sat up, and he looked like a mannequin. And he goes, thank you very much, you've saved my life. And I go, no problem, I'm in a band called the Rugburns. You should come see us sometime. We're a crazy band. I wear a dress on stage half the time. We're out of our minds. This is back when I used to take drugs and drink before I ended up in rehab and everything. I was in this crazy band. So that's a whole different story. So we were in this crazy punk rock band, and he says to me, oh, I would like to come see some punk rock music sometime. I go, really? Mr. Mormon missionary guy? That's cool. And so, anyways, he gets up and he says, "You've saved my life," because the tide was coming. I said, "Don't worry." And he says, "I owe you a favor. I'll never forget." I said, "No worries." And I walked away. He goes, "What's your name?" And I said, "My name is Steve Poltz." And I said, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Mitt Romney." And then I was like, "Whoa, this is so weird." So the guy owes me a favor, which is really cool. And then I came back to the room, and Jewel was asleep. And I pulled out my guitar, and I started picking this song, and I wrote it on a drug bust in Mexico. And Jewel woke up and said, "I like that song. Here's what you should do with it. Don't Pultzerize it." Because in my songs, usually somebody dies, or I ruin them, or something awful happens. And so she said, "Let's write it, and I think it's going to be a hit." And so here's the song we wrote in Mexico. The clock and it's 6 a.m. I feel so far from where I've been. I got my eggs, I got my pancakes too, and I got my maple syrup, everything but you. I'll break the yolks, make a smiley face, and I kinda like it in my brand new place. I wipe the spots off of the mirror, don't leave the keys in the door, and I never put wet towels on the floor anymore, 'cause dreams last for so long, even after you're gone. And I know that you love me, and soon I know you will see that you were meant for me. And I was meant for you. I called my mom, but she was out for a walk. I consoled a cup of coffee, but it didn't want to talk. Picked up the paper, it was more bad news. More hearts being broken, more people being used. Put on my PJs and I hop into bed. No. Picked up the paper, went for a walk. Oh yeah. It was happy, I was sad. It made me miss you oh so bad, 'cause dreams last for so long, even after you're gone. And I know that you love me, and soon I know you will see that you were meant for me, and I was meant for you. Now every song needs a bridge. Well, that's not true. Not every song. That's bullshit. But lots of songs need bridges. And why do they need bridges? Because sometimes you want the omniscient character in the song to tell them what you just told them. Tell them what you tell them. It's not like a thesis statement. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you told them. Or if you think about what my mom told me, who was there, what happened, and how did it make you feel? Those three things. Because she was an English teacher, and I went to Catholic school. I got a very good education, I'm going to tell you. So the bridge, a lot of times you'll go into a minor chord. So you're there, you're in the C, and then you're like, where should we go to the bridge? And Joel goes, I don't know. And I said, let's try an A minor 7. So here's the bridge. Go about my business, I'm doing fine. Besides, what would you say if I had you on the line? Same old story, not much to say. Hearts are broken every day. Oh yeah. So the song ends up getting really popular, but at first it wasn't popular, but she gets a record deal with Atlantic Records, and so she says to me one day, she says, how can I get a following? And I said, you should find a little coffee house and play there every Thursday, because I think you have something special. It's really cool, but you need to develop it. So she played there every Thursday night. Next thing you know, after a year, limousines are pulling up. Tommy Mottola from Sony Records, Danny Goldberg from Atlantic at the time is coming up. All these record companies, back in the days when record deals existed and they would give huge deals. And this is in the 90s, right? So anyway, she starts playing, this happens. So she gets a record deal and the record label says, we think that song You Were Meant For Me is a hit. And I said, really? Because we wrote another song called Daddy, She's a Goddess about a couple that kidnapped some kids. So I think it's like, Jewel looks at me, she goes, I told you your songs, you always pulverize them. I told you your songs in your head. And I look at her and I go, maybe the girl knows something that I don't know, because I don't even care. And so anyways, they said, listen, Neil Young wants you to make the record at his ranch. You know, he's a fan, he saw you play. So we get to go up, we get to live at Neil Young's ranch. And we're living there, and it's produced, the record's produced by Ben Keith, who's now deceased, but he would play this pedal steel on the Stray Gators. He also played with Patsy Cline. Amazing. So he produces a record, we're living at Neil Young's ranch and everything, everything's going good. And then, Sean Penn steals it from me. Fuck! So, we do that show, what's it called, Jay Leno, right? We do the Jay Leno show, and Jewel's opening for Liz Phair at this theater before She's Broken Pig. And then Sean Penn shows up, and he had burned down the mansion he lived in with Madonna, and so he's living in an Airstream trailer. And so then he says, why don't you come over to the house? So we go over to the house, and he says, you want to get stoned? So I get stoned with Sean Penn, and I walk out of an Airstream trailer, and Sean Penn, by the way, has a bandage over his nose because he'd been in a fight, and he looks kind of crazy, and he goes, you want to shoot a gun at the stars with me? I said, no. And I started getting scared, and he had that crazy Willie Nelson type weed. This is back when I still used to smoke pot and everything, so I get really high. And then I had this vision of the future as we were peeing side by side. Sean Penn looked at me and I looked at him, and in my mind I went, he's gonna steal my girlfriend. Sure enough, a week later, she's flying with him and Jack Nicholson all the way to the Cannes Film Festival. I'm crying, I'm in the rugburns, I'm totally broken hearted. Well, he directs a video for You Remember Me, and the song tanks, nothing happens. And then they don't last together long because he goes to Robin Wright Penn. This is like People magazine right now. So anyways, Jewel calls me up and she says, will you be in the video? I'm gonna have somebody else direct it. And I want you to not wear a shirt and go like this to my face. And I go, okay, I'll do it. I figured nobody's gonna see the video. So then, that video gets directed, and I'm the dude in the Jewel video. So the thing sells 15 million copies, and I start walking down the street at the time, and it's about, oh, I reckon he was bad, no. And I'm walking down the street, and then people start going, hey, that's the dude from the Jewel video, wherever I went. So anyways, I had to go to the doctors because I was at the doctors and my testicle was hurting. You know how when that happens, Emma? So anyways, I said to myself, man, I wonder if I have testicular cancer. So they go, you gotta get what's called the testicular ultrasound. Now, I don't know if you've ever had a testicular ultrasound, any of you women here, but it's not a cool thing to get. But you've had worse things, I know. So they lay me down on the stretcher, and the lady says, take off all your clothes. And she's this really hot nurse. She's probably like 56 years old, gorgeous blonde hair. And she says, take off your clothes. And I go, you take off your clothes. And she says, this is not a joke, young man. Back then, I was a young man. So she lays me down on the stretcher, and she says, spread your legs apart. And then there's a TV screen. You can see her balls up on the TV screen while she's giving me a testicular ultrasound. And I gotta tell you, my balls looked really small on the TV. And I said, that thing makes it smaller, right? And she goes, no, it actually adds 10 pounds. So I'm feeling totally embarrassed and everything. I go, well, at least nobody knows me. I get dressed, and she goes, I think you're gonna be okay. You gotta take some medicine and stuff. And I said, okay. So I go walking out. She said, by the way, I'm so excited because I got to give a testicular ultrasound to the dude in the Jewel video. And I said, you watched that video? So I was freaking out, and I'm feeling totally embarrassed about it. And then I go to the Charger game that Sunday. And I'm at the San Diego Chargers game, seeing them play the Raiders. And at the end of the third quarter, they cut off the beer sales because they don't want people getting too drunk anymore at the NFL football games. So I'm standing there, and there's this guy, he's a Hell's Angel guy in front of me. He's with his girlfriend. And he looks back, and he goes, I think that's the dude from the Jewel video. And he's a Hell's Angel guy with a spider web tattoo down his elbow. He's got tattooed tears down his cheek. And I'm getting kind of scared, so I talk to these guys next to me. I realize there's 4 of them, and they're from Kentucky. And then they go, you are the dude from the Jewel video. And I was like, holy shit, man. This video's gone nationwide in 1999. So anyways, I said to them, can you keep me company because I'm really scared of the Hell's Angel that's over there? And they said, don't worry, he ain't gonna hurt you. And they were talking just like that. And I said, well, what can we do to pass the time? And they go, let's play 20 questions. And I was like, 20 questions? And the other 2 guys from Kentucky are like, what, 20 questions? He goes, I write a word down on a piece of paper, and then you gotta guess it. And I said, okay. He goes, you be on my team. So he writes down donkey dick. And I was like, whoa. So the Hell's Angel guy's looking back at me, and the first guy from Kentucky goes, is it edible? And the first guy with me goes, I reckon it is. And the second guy goes, is it donkey dick? Hell's Angel guy looks back. Oh man. I brush my teeth, I put the cap back on. I know you hate it when I leave the light on. I pick a book up, I turn the sheets down. I take a drink and a good look around. I put on my PJs and I hop into bed. I'm half alive, but I feel mostly dead. I tell myself it'll all be alright. I shouldn't think anymore tonight, 'cause dreams last for so long, even after you're gone. That's right. And I know that you love me, and sooner than you'll see. That's right.
You were meant for me, and I was meant for you.
Let's do that chorus again, man. We're just getting into it. Yeah. Dreams last for so long,
Even after you're gone.
oh, you sound so good.
And I know you love me, and soon I know you'll see. You were meant for me, and I was meant for you. Yeah, you were meant for me. I was meant for you.
Is it? Wow. Woo! All right, thank you so much, everybody. You did? I got another show I gotta play. Thank you.
The most entertaining thing ever.
Thank you. Don't forget to support Tickley.
Well, not.
Bill Kirchens. I love you too, buddy.